Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is when you're looking at this. This is our third week at MCOM 653 Teaching Methods. And I really just wanted to go over some of my thoughts from this week's readings. There was a couple of things that I just kind of made me stop and think. And maybe you saw other things that caught your attention, but there was a few things that I'm really trying to reconcile with my own experience as an instructor, my own experience as a student, and I'm curious what your feedback is, what your thoughts are, kind of your reflections on the readings yourself, if any of these things kind of caught your attention. So first, there was a quote on page 139 on the beginning of chapter 11 that says, "We all want students who are motivated to learn. These are the students who choose to attend class regularly, make the effort to prepare for class, participate constructively, persist when learning is difficult, make the effort to prepare for class and to study effectively, who solicit help when they need it, and who translate this into academic success." And then on the very next page it says, "Researchers typically consider three indices of motivation: choice, effort, and persistence. Achievement is an outcome of these variables. Accordingly, students who are motivated to learn choose tasks that enhance their learning, work hard at those tasks, and persist in the face of difficulty in order to attain their goals." So I'm really not sure, because I feel like these two statements slightly conflict with one another. Because I don't know how many students actually fall into meet all that criteria, that they always come to class, that they always prepare, that they always participate constructively, they always persist when learning is difficult. Sometimes I feel like some students don't have difficulties learning, and I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of criteria here that many students don't fall into, so I just feel like it sets the standards very high for students, because as many of you have pointed out, in your discussions, things happen. Students have lives outside of school. And as an instructor, I've always tried to respect that. So, you have students whose parents get sick, students, and they have to take care of them. Students who have illnesses themselves, or they lose jobs when they're non-traditional students. Just a lot of stressors outside of school and not to mention a full course load often outside of that, and I've always tried to respect that. So if any of you or any of my former students have ever come to me and say they're in a pinch and they need help, I always try and help. And anyways, I'm just gonna say, I don't know that I've ever met this student who fits these criteria, and I don't know that this needs to be kind of a strict assessment of what the ideal student is that is motivated, that those that are motivated to learn. But I don't know, I'm kind of grappling with this idea, and I'm not sure how much it matches up with my own experiences as a student, because I think I was a pretty good student. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have stayed in school so long. But I don't know, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this, and also there's this idea of students who are motivated to learn choose tasks that enhance their learning. There's not always a choice what you get to do in classes. I've not had a lot of professors who actually let you choose your coursework and choose your assignments in the class, and you get to choose your classes, I suppose, but within those classes, I don't know how much choice there is. So, I don't know. Thoughts? Interested to see what you think on that. And then also, I'm interested in what you think in terms of, let's see, on page 143, talking about tests, basically, and what kind of tests and how we assess our students. And, this class is supposed to be geared towards teaching mass communication courses. And I hope that many of you would agree, I don't know, maybe you do, but especially those of you who are professional journalists right now, that you see journalism as a craft, especially writing. This is something that we do. We have to do it often, we have to do it a lot, and it takes change, and you have to work on it, you have to revise. I don't think any good writer likes their first draft as much as the one that they've revised necessarily. But anyways, journalism is a process and it's a craft. You get better over time. And so I'm interested, for instance, for our mass communication classes, what is the value of a normative versus a criterion reference grading? So, is there room for multiple choice assessments in which I understand to be the normative exams? or should we always be criterion reference grading? And I realize that I tend to choose the criterion reference grading in my courses because I feel, that way I can judge each student individually based on what I'm looking for versus normative where it's just kind of cut and dry. So, it's just something to think about. And then also, I like the idea and the ethic of teaching our students that their success does not come at the expense of others. I like that kind of collectivist perspective, but I wonder if that's really very realistic for mass communication students that can go into highly competitive fields. I just hear stories of law students hiding journal articles from one another. I don't know. So can we balance an ethical classroom with professional realities? I have very high standards of what it means to be a journalist, even as I'm actually on the PR side of things anymore. But, I still hold the journalists that I work with to very high standards. And so, for instance, when I see them print press releases verbatim, I've gotten irate about that, and I've really called some people to the carpet over that. And I would expect them to, give my press releases scrutiny as well. But when it comes, in a profession where deadlines matter, beating other people to the scoop matters, beating them to the story, how can we balance this kind of ethical classroom where we do things because it's good, not because we're going to do it better than someone else? I don't know. That kind of struck me as a little curious. And then finally, I've noticed this in our discussions, and I kind of want to delve into this a little bit, but I really resist the idea of instructors as entertainers. Largely, I don't know. I just don't feel like, sometimes coursework, sometimes a class is just going to be boring. I don't know how exciting you can make physics or chemistry, or maybe that's probably can be exciting. I don't know. I used to like to blow things up in a chemistry class, but, this quote that engagement is more than being present. Of course, they're also less likely to be texting under the desk or viewing Facebook rather than taking notes if the material is presented in an engaging way and supplements the reading they can do outside of class. So I want to know what you guys think about this idea of as instructors as entertainers, and what exactly does it mean to be engaging to our students? Maybe we can come up in our discussion this week. What is that line? Are we... I don't know, what does that mean to be entertaining and engaging as an instructor versus being frivolous? Because I think that's the line there that we have to be really worried about. We have kind of the importance of what we're trying to teach our students, but also balancing it with a way that makes it meaningful to them. And then I just saw something the other day about how letting kids get bored leads to creativity. And I wonder what that might mean in terms of a classroom, because if you don't have kids, I will tell you that teaching is a lot like having kids. It definitely mellowed me out. But just kind of a thought, if we have time with our thoughts, and if it's not just all flash and pizzazz, then maybe it helps students kind of reflect on the material more. I don't know. I have no answers, just some thoughts, things to leave you with that maybe you can think about. No obligations. And then finally, on our class on the multicultural classroom, dealing with diversity in our classrooms, so many of you, of our class members, have lived abroad, live abroad like Kane, or you come from, say, the Philippines like Jennifer, or, many of you have worked abroad, you travel a lot. And so this might be a good week to really kind of give our reflections on that. What are some of the, experiences where these cultures have clashed, and how have you resolved that those experiences? How was it a good resolution? Did it lead to more conflict? I'd really like to hear some of that, so you could share that with one another. What are some of the very frank and honest experiences you've had as you've tried to figure out how to work and live and just kind of get by in a multicultural and a diverse experience? We all have them. We may not realize it, but we have all come in contact in these situations, and we should share it and learn from each other, so we just kind of know how to do better in these experiences. Because American universities are multiculturalism writ large. Basically, we have the privilege of coming in contact with people from all over the world in a university setting, and it's a great joy. It's one of the best things about it. But it does bring some. It does bring some. We have to think about it. We have to be careful. So what are your experiences? Let's talk about it. I think we could all learn from that. And then finally, there's always that student in class. Well, not always, but a lot of times there's the kid at some point who things go horribly awry. And I mean, I know I've had it. I had one kid in the class that I taught on gender in the media, and he was a C student through and through. And when I gave him a C at the end of the class, wrote me the most hateful emails, and I just had to like step away and thank you for your feedback, and just leave it there. But in the context of a class, because I think there will be the students who like to challenge you. How can we redirect that back into a teachable moment for the whole class? So maybe not even in like an argumentative or a difficult student, but one who just doesn't quite seem to get it. So I remember one time I had a student who we were talking about definitions of beauty in my gender and media class, and she was like, well, if Jessica Simpson isn't really beautiful, then what does that, what is beautiful then? And it took me a week to think about it, how I could use that. And she wasn't being mean or anything, but I realized that that was a moment to really kind of apply what we were talking about in class and just kind of break down our assumptions of gender and beauty. And so at the beginning of class, I started back up with that and use that to kind of help us deconstruct and break down some of our preconceptions about what it meant to be beautiful, and to look at it as a historical concept rather than a static preconceptualization of what it meant to be a beautiful woman. So anyways, those are the moments that can be really instructive, and you can really turn things back to the class. Like, well, what do you think about this? I find that to be very productive. And a lot of times I don't have to say anything, that the students actually say it for me. And generally, when you set the right tone with your students, and you're very careful, and you reinforce, that we will be civil with one another, and that, like the golden rule basically in class, you treat your peers as you want to be treated. I find that it stands. And so, when I have discussion leaders in class, which is typically what I like to do, then if, say, for instance, they're up at the front of the class and then no one is participating, I put it back on the class, like, you're going to be up here at the front of the classroom too, how would you feel? Treat them like you would want to be treated. So don't sit there silent. Help your peers out. And so, if you throw it back to the class, I find it's very productive and very helpful. But I'm curious, what you all have seen, some of your experiences, tactics you might use, things you can think of that might be helpful in these situations. I'll also add that right after the shootings at West Virginia, or Virginia Tech, excuse me, I was pregnant with my first kid, and I had a student that was a little unsettled, and he wasn't doing very well in the class. And when he turned in, I realized he had plagiarized the paper, and when he turned in something at the last day of class and I asked him to come see me to talk about his paper, I read this thing afterwards and realized that he was not in a good place at all, that he was really struggling with some issues. And so I made sure that everyone above me knew about it, and I passed it off to my supervising professor, who was a male, who was not pregnant, because I felt very vulnerable. And I think it was resolved. The student got the help that he needed. It helped him. He's been very successful in college. But yeah, those things really do happen, and it's hard to do it when you have a large lecture class, but when you have smaller discussion sections, you really do get to know your students, and you can look at their work as you can really it's the work that your students turn in really can be kind of an insight into what's happening in their lives, especially when you see students who normally turn things in constantly on time, they're always participating, and then they just drop off out of the world. That's when I usually step in and I will contact people, without them asking me, is everything okay, what's going on? And a lot of times it's a better resolution for all. And so if I haven't said that this class, I want to say that now, that the same goes for all of you, that it's easier to ask for help and let me know what's going on beforehand rather than getting in over your head. But as instructors, you will see in people's work, in your students' work, indications that there's something going on. And I would urge you to follow your instinct on that, because it just helps. Students sometimes don't feel like they have anyone to talk to, and there's this wall between the instructor and the student, and it helps. It really helps. I have had some really good relationships with students who just needed someone to recognize that something was going on. So things to think about as usual. And then finally, just a little housekeeping. Let's see, your syllabus critique is not due this Friday. It's due Wednesday, April 3rd instead. And again, the word count that I gave before, but Jennifer has a really good idea of what she would like to do. She is kind of playing around with it. If there's some way you can make this assignment help you in any way, just that's different than the original assignment, just shoot it past me. I'm sure it'll be okay. But the new deadline is now Wednesday, April 3rd. We still have Friday due is a draft of your course objectives. So you'll have 2 things due next week in addition to our regular discussion. If that seems to get too much and be a little unwieldy, just let me know, and I will of course be flexible. But let's try and keep to our deadlines from here on out, just so we don't get too piled up at the end of the semester. Also, for your syllabus, for your courses that you're proposing, you also need to identify the reading materials. So in addition to the assignments that you'll be giving, this will be a fully fleshed out syllabus, complete, like through and through. There's going to be nothing missing from it. So you need to start thinking about what your reading materials will be, and how you'll pair assignments with those reading materials. So if you don't know what textbook you'll assign or what chapters you'll assign, start looking through Amazon and just do a keyword search on intercultural communication or whatever it is some of you guys are writing about, and and look there. A couple of you are proposing sports writing courses, so you might start going through and looking at good examples of sports writing and use that as an assigned reading for your course or something like that. But start getting that stuff in line. Start doing that now instead of waiting until the assignments are due or until your syllabus is due at the end of the semester, and everyone should be in good shape. But I think that's it for this week, and I'll be jumping into the discussion boards as things come up. And anyways, email me with any questions you guys have. You have my office number if you need to call me, and we will, just let me know what's up. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.